Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Cece Wright. I'm the Executive Director of Directors Gathering, and we are recording this session. If you need any technical support or any other kind of support during this session, please message me or Nina-Tech DG, and we will do our best to help you. You can turn on auto captioning by clicking Show Captions or the CC icon on your Zoom toolbar. This session is scheduled to go until 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, so about an hour. And this is the last session of the day, and then later on this evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have the reflection space open, so you can use the same link to get there as well. And now I'll pass it over to our facilitator. Tamara. Wait. Hold on. We're going to get Tamara back. Stand by, please. Okay. All right.
Hello, sorry, I pressed the wrong button and literally kicked myself out of the meeting. That's always fun.
That's okay. Let me go ahead and make you co-host again so you can have access to all the tools you need. All right, now I'm going to get out of your way. This is Tamara.
Hello, and welcome. First, inside the chat, really quick, I'm gonna actually put it back in the chat, is a link. Oh, Nina already put it in there. Thank you so much. It's the end of the survey session link, which has like 3 short questions you can fill out near the end, and a Padlet, which has some interactive things while we're going to go in. It's a beautiful note-taking tool, so you can jump on there and use that. Also, we can go through that. And also, anytime we have like any questions or anything, like I say, hey, let's talk about some stuff, you can use the Padlet or you can use the chat. I can see both of them. So I'm going to share my screen. So you should see me at the bottom left side of your screen. And we're going to get started. So this is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and casting and directing opportunities. My name is Tamara Anderson, Tamara Della Anderson. I like to go through bio. I have 20 plus years as an educator in public and higher ed. I'm currently an at-large Eastern Council member for Actors Equity Association. Also on Actors Equity Association, I am a BIPOC community co-leader, member of SAG-AFTRA since 2009, and member of Actors Equity since 2003. Lead creator of the solo project Gumbo Lab, owner of Gumbo Lab LLC, which works with all different projects. We'll talk about that later, and working actor and director for the last 22 plus years. Okay, so purpose of today is we want to identify and talk about DI, terms, connections, systemic practices, casting and directing, colorblind versus color conscious, anti-racist strategies for theater institutions, and so on and so forth. So here's also another way to get to the Padlet. So for those who weren't able to link inside the chat, you can also use this wonderful QR code. I'll give people a couple seconds to kind of scan that with All right. Could I have a volunteer to read this quote out loud, please?
Um, Part of the privilege of whiteness is not needing to reflect on whiteness. If it's assumed to be the default, the gold standard, or the universally relatable condition, it's easy to forget that whiteness is just as socially and politically constructed as other racial identities. Christine Rowe.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So let's take a moment and let's move over to the Padlet. So in the Padlet, can everybody see the Padlet now? You'll see a quote response, and you can just click on this plus sign and you can write away like what your initial response is to that quote. Or even if you have the quote makes you think of a question too. So I'll give it a few more seconds. I love that. Reminds me to listen and be curious. Yes. Oh, I love that. The construct was designed to make itself invisible. Yes. Steve, have you did you get a link for the Padlet? If not, I could throw it inside the chat again.
Not sure. I need to check. I just jumped in. I'm sorry. Something. I
No,
got
you're no
stuck.
problem. I
Let
can
me.
paste.
Is it an email you sent?
No, it was in the earlier part of the chat, but I can
Yeah,
also
I
paste
missed
it.
it.
Cut
I'm
it.
sorry.
No,
I
there it
didn't
is.
see it.
I
Okay,
just
hang
put it
on.
in there again.
Oh, this is it here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we were just responding to the quote, so there'll be other chances to
Yep.
engage with it. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about really quick, like what is DI? It's such a, I feel like it's become this new buzz term for all the things that we've been talking about or not talking about, whether in this industry or other industries. So I would like to read this intro. So theaters have been facing instances of tokenism and or limited opportunities when it comes to artists or directors of color for over a century. And each time the industry puts a mirror up to themselves, they attempt to measure their project progress based on past efforts or historical data. In 2025, how far along have we come as an industry and a culture? How does our creative present match, challenge, or reflect the current political climate? Toni Morrison said, like failure, Chaos contains information that can lead to knowledge, even wisdom, like art. What have we learned from the chaos? And what kind of work do we need to do in order to manifest sustainable growth and change for directors and artists of color? So kind of think about that. And I know that the term chaos sometimes has a negative connotation. It can. It's like everything's being thrown against the wall at once. But in the midst of that chaos is where growth often happens. The convening theme for this year is what sustains us. I dare say it is the chance to work, because a contract is not simply an artistic journey. It is also a way for us to pay bills, care for family, keep a roof over our heads, and sometimes have access to health care. But at times it seems impossible when the opportunities are simply not there or you have very little access. So on the Padlet, you'll also notice a parking lot. In that parking lot, like it's same as you think of things as we're talking, and we don't get a chance to really bring it up, and you have questions or comments, please throw those in there so we can review as we get to the Q&A. So what DEI is, to be clear, diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism work are not the same, although they are often conflated to be the same. Understanding the difference between them is absolutely critical if you want to make a real difference in your organizational culture. Theoretically, DEI efforts focus on making an organization more diverse, welcoming, affirming, and fair for people of all backgrounds, identities, statuses, and social ranks. However, the vast majority of corporations and organizations with DEI committees, officers, or programs tend to linger around the D part of it, diversity, without ever thinking critically about what they're diversifying from historically. What does that look like? And why that is important when considering the culture, value, norms, and fears that they are trying to recruit, multiply marginalized people into. These organizations then wonder why they cannot seem to retain and promote people of color, LGBTQ plus people, disabled people, etc., all the same, consistent rate as their white, straight, able-bodied staff. This goes along with directors and within our community. Even though we're talking like this is an organizational definition, I think it's really important because we often hear DEI, and people say anti-racist, and people say, well, I don't want to talk about racism, I want to talk about diversity. And you're like, huh? Well, like you can't talk about one without the other, right? So we're gonna discuss some root causes, and I'm gonna introduce some terms. You also have access to this slideshow in the Padlet. The Padlet is like your forever thing. In that Padlet are resources and all that stuff that you can keep until, till the cows come home. I like to say, until Jesus dies again and comes back, you will have it, okay? Now, racism. So what is racism? Racism is the belief which assigns innate thoughts, actions, and characteristics to a group of people based on their race and or ethnicity that affirms the perceived superiority of another race and or ethnicity. So perceived is important because we know that race is a construct. It is something that is created, something that is not based in biology or science, the differences, right? It's very much an anthropological construct because we know anthropology is about culture and ethnicity and how people interact with each other. Could somebody read the anti-racism slide for me? Anybody can unmute themselves and just jump in. Yes, Kathy.
Anti-racism consists of strategies, theories, actions, and practices that challenge and counter racism, white supremacy, inequalities, prejudice, and discrimination based on race.
Yeah, it's an action plan, right? As opposed to just a statement. So if you were only focusing on the D part of DEI and have not said, how do we define anti-racism? How are we defining anti-Blackness? How are we defining anti-ableism? All these things, then we're only doing half of the work, right? We can't get to the equitable part of it. Can somebody volunteer to read race as a construct?
I'm happy to read again.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah.
Race as a construct. What do we mean? Race is a way people have been divided based on differences in skin tone, hair texture, facial features, and cultural heritage. Quote, the concept of race is not actually based on science, it is the creation of society. Well, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Jewel, actually. Mm-hmm.
Jewel, thank you. The dominant culture, Europeans in the 1700s, began categorizing people like plants and animals. This system established a hierarchy. The book is Anti-Racist, Tiffany
mm-hmm.
and Jewel.
This is the teacher in me. I was like, on page 24 is where this comes from. My APA stuff. So you could, like, if you want to look something up as a resource, that's a way to. Thank you so much. So because of that leads to stereotypes and tropes in the industry, right? So we have the sassy Black female, the spicy Latina. And if you think these things still do not exist, yes, they do, okay? Sanitizing manifest destiny, stories like Oklahoma. Even though we have, they redid the entire Oklahoma and, made it this beautiful, diverse cast, the script itself was very not changed, right? So it's almost like, that's beautiful. But what was also happening in Oklahoma? Like, maybe we take this Oklahoma and that inspires other writers to write this new Oklahoma, right? A new version of that. Shakespeare and classical roles not for BIPOC actors. Celebration of the American dream. If you work really hard, you can achieve anything. This whole idea of, it comes up sometimes, we like to call it Black exceptionalism. And it also comes up in this idea, which you are seeing now play across social media when people are going back and forth about their ideas around SNAP benefits and what Medicaid looks like, not fully understanding that majority of Medicaid and SNAP recipients are people that work hourly wages and work jobs, and are also artists. And so there we are. Limited representation of intersectionality, disability, sexual orientations, gender, and race when you see those characters written. And what I forgot to add to here is ageism. Performers of a certain age. Like, if you notice, if they have program new directors, they're always like emerging directors, 20-somethings. And you're like, what if I'm 45 or 50 and I've been in this life for a long time, but I haven't had an opportunity to be a professional director, right? That is like, where do you fall? Because somebody read, what is ethnicity?
What is ethnicity?
And if you just joined us, you can jump on in and read too. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm just giving people invitation.
No, I appreciate it. Ethnicity specifically focuses on your family's cultural and ancestral heritage, traditions, language, and history. The names of ethnic categories often shift over time. In the United States, a major place we see ethnicity play out is in the Latinx and Afro-Latino communities. This book is anti-racist.
There is there's an entire thing about where do Afro-Cubans or Brazilian, where do people sit, right? Like, people assume because you're Portuguese that which is Brazilian, which is a part of Hispanic culture, but not as part of Spanish culture, right? Like, it's all these different congruence. Also the fact of how the names of, you go from Negro, from colored, Negro, Black, African American, right? It's like a sliding scale. Like, people came to a meeting and said, today the new name is blah blah blah. Like you're in Schoolhouse Rock. So at the end of the day, it's really about how do you identify, right? Like you have your personal identifications and then you have societal identifications, right? And a lot of these identifications are also have really steep roots in history, good, bad, or ugly, which we have to always acknowledge, which is why dramaturgy is so important. I'm sorry, I'm bringing it up again. Goodness gracious. Because you have a lot of theaters who will be like, I will invite this new playwright to come to the show and give them no dramaturgy, or think they don't need it. And you're like, oh, that's adorable. What's that got to do with Chicago? I'm confused. Like, who wrote this? And so you want to make sure that these things are connected, because it's connected. White supremacy. Can somebody read that for me, please?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. White supremacy is the ideology that white people and the ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and actions of white people are superior to people of color. White supremacy culture is an artificial, historically constructed culture which I think your head is in the way, Tamara. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Which expresses, justifies, and binds together the United States white supremacy system. Thank you.
Now, here goes me trying something new. I said, oh, you can put your head in it? And I was like, that might fly. I tried. Thank you. And this is from Sharon Martinez in a Challenging White Supremacy Workshop. And that article, I think I might have forgotten to add it, but I can add it into the Padlet if people are interested in having it as a resource. Now, here go the stats. I love a good statistic. So this is according to equity contracts. So understand, I'm a firm believer that these numbers are lower when you put non-union status under it, okay? So there were 18,085 new union contracts in 2022. Was it 2020? I think it's 2021, 22 seasons that we were measuring, a 2022, 2023 season. Yeah, that's what we were measuring. And so you want to compare, people like, oh, wait, yeah, okay. Because so pre-COVID, our highest number was 24,156. So we are still ramping up to get back to that number, so to speak. Out of these new contracts, these are acting contracts. 30.3% were BIPOC, 50% were white and or European identified, and 3.9% preferred, not to say. The average weekly pay for plays, straight plays, if you were a principal, the average weekly pay was $864 a week. The average weekly pay for musicals was $1,278 a week. According to the SDC, which is very interesting, I just found out, honestly, 2 weeks ago, so SDC stands for Stage Directors and Choreographers Society, which is the Union for Stage Directors and Choreographers. They have like a contract, an agreement, a rate term, a limit, like what's the minimum can be paid, and you could be negotiating from that. So I started with off-Broadway directors. I didn't include Broadway and those things. So off-Broadway directors, the range is $24,000 to $13,000. But what's interesting is most of us, I'd like to say, live in the alphabet soup range, which is Lord theaters, regional theaters, right? And what's interesting is they don't have a contract even for independent theaters or guest artist theaters, because most of those theaters don't hire union directors, right? But also a lot of Lord theaters don't either. Ding, ding. Not gonna name any names. I know some people in Philly that do not. So Lord A+, I like to call it, they like the people that want to be Broadway but don't really want to be Broadway. They just kind of think, no, we're talking about the public and Lincoln Center. They like, we have $1 billion endowment, but we a Lord theater. I'm like, okay, thanks. So their range is $36,000 to $8,000. Right? Now, as somebody who's AD'd, and I like to call the LOA reference by Lord Theater, I can tell you that my lump sum pay for AD and dramaturgy, and I choreographed the show. This is the same show. I was just glad I was in the show too. or else I'd have been like, please, Doug, can I have some porridge? So that was how that looked. So these are like where we're working as far as finances. And it's not even including jobs, like what, like who and where you can get work. This I included, we're gonna go over New York racial demographics, US and Philadelphia, because I feel like that kind of makes up this region, so to speak, even though this is like a people come from all over. So if you look at this, African Americans make up 21%, white Americans make up 37.5%, and so far. But look at these numbers. According to the last visibility report that was done it was released right during the panorama, as I like to call it, but it looked at the numbers from 2018, 2019. So it's old. It's actually, I'm surprised we don't have a new visibility report, but that's another problem too. We underreport things too, which doesn't help us make change. And so in that old report, it said that 90% though of producers and directors on Broadway were white, which means that surpasses the number of white people that live in New York City. And before LaChance and other people were producing these last couple of years, there were 0 Black producers. And that has a trickle-down effect. Because people are like, why are we talking about Broadway? What about regional theater? Whatever they do, we do. We're like, yay, and then we do it too. But this is the US one. Like, people of color are the global majority. Global majority means across the world. But here in the US of A, we only make up 13, it's like 13. If you add the Black, Native, Asian, Pacific, like you add this whole right, left side, it barely comes, it's under 50%. And then we have Philadelphia demographic. So what I like to say is if you are producing in places like Philadelphia, you're producing in places like New York City, this is your audience. So when you're sitting down and you're having a strategic plan, and I love those meetings. Oh my God. So you talk about, this is my strategic plan, and we want to have a community plan, and we're going to reach so many people. And I'm like, where are the people coming from? And how many of them people even know you exist? And how many of these stories are stories they want to sit and watch for an hour and a half? And what about bringing stories into their community, into their rec centers, and things like that? Like, what are we doing to show dual access? Could somebody volunteer to read different colorblind versus color conscious casting?
I could read it. I will let you know that we'll need your head to move just a little
I'm
bit.
sorry. No, let me, you know what? Watch this. I'm about to change. I'm about to go back to the old school way of saving stuff. I just got excited. I said, oh, there's options.
I mean, it's been working for the most part.
I know, but I didn't make the slide thinking about that. I was like, that was an afterthought. So now I know I got to move my slide stuff over to the right thing now. But it was okay. Okay.
Colorblind versus color conscious casting. Colorblind casting is the practice of casting without considering the actor's ethnicity, skin color, body shape, sex, and/or gender. Color conscious casting, casting with the awareness of the history of discrimination, racism, sexism, ableism, and homophobia that exists in theater, considering roles to not only increase access, but to also possibly add another layer to the script with the presence of a BIPOC or non-binary actor. Example, What changes in Oklahoma with an all Black or BIPOC cast? What is the added value to the fictional and or historical setting of any script?
Thank you. Sorry, we went off a little bit off back there.
No, it's okay.
So we're actually going to pause here because this goes into, I think, my next slide, which talks about, yeah, that's what I thought. Beautiful. Let's stop here and let's have a conversation. So I've thrown a lot of things at you. Some of it was just to have a working idea of when I speak about DI, this is where I am coming from. And this is where, honestly, we all should kind of come from. So my question is, how does all this information, what can we do then about casting in theater? And how is that connected to how directors are hired, right? Because we also know that in smaller Lord theaters, directors are also connected to who are the artistic directors, because many of them don't have the budget to hire outside directors. So then we have to talk about what type of leadership do we see in the Alphabet Soup Theater since George Floyd. Like, remember, it was everybody being recruited. Like, it was everybody and their grandma. It was looking like the United Nations for about 2 seconds. And most of those individuals lasted 2 years. And they all complained about many things, not having support, feeling ostracized, getting death threats, blah, blah. It was not a great experiment, so to speak. So the question is how, like what's next then? How do we move beyond town halls and diversity statements?
I don't know, I don't know how best to formulate what I'm theorizing. And that's the thing, is right now it's just,
That's what this conversation is. It
yeah,
literally is that.
yeah. But I think that one of the main things that I've observed in those failed experiments, which honestly I think in of itself is a problematic statement, because the issuing and the pipeline of bringing more diversity into leadership should not have been sparked by such a violent act. So there's that. But I think one of the biggest concerns is not paying attention enough to the diversity of your region, like being conscientious of those in your region that you want to outreach to, and how that informs the way that you program and the leadership changes that should be made. So I have found that more often than not, organizations seem preoccupied with the audiences that they already have and serving those audiences so that they can keep them, instead of considering the audiences that they can outreach to and what that means to opening up the opportunities that they make available to a more diversified set of creative people, which then in of itself creates a pipeline to a more diverse leadership that has more experience with the particular regions that they're in, the organizations that they've been working with, and have better institutional support because they've worked with those organizations or within that community before, versus being recruited outside of their community to come into a new community, that I feel like was happening a lot post the George Floyd protests and the urgent effort to diversify leadership in theater, is that there was a lot of recruiting people from outside of communities, and then they don't have that community support when they come into those institutions. Yeah, that's one thing I think is is like a struggle with what we experienced in the urgent effort to make change.
So I hear that there's a lack of probably institutional support and a lack of like institutional historical support in the space. It's almost like, you know, trying to bake this beautiful cake and you have no butter, no sugar, no flour.
Yeah.
But you're like, I got a pan. So
Yeah.
it's just like trying to make those things happen.
I
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt. I think it's also institutional curiosity, like a lack of institutional curiosity, because it's not just like you need the butter and the eggs and the flour. It's like, I have a pan, so why don't I have a cake? And not even knowing that a cake is made of butter and flour and eggs. Like there's not a curiosity to find like what is involved in making this, as well as not having the ingredients to do it.
Oh, I
So,
like that. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go to is it Carly? And I'm gonna go to Jarrell.
Yes, Carly. I think a lot about how I see a lot of directors, and predominantly white directors, who I question if they asked why this story, why now, and why this casting. Like, it feels like a lot of shoehorning. And it kind of goes back to what Bree was saying, where it feels like in trying to hold on to what is also predominantly an older, whiter, more moneyed audience in our capitalist society, that we're then taking these shows, like you brought up Oklahoma, like we're taking these shows that we're like, oh, this will sell. And then we're trying to shoehorn identities into those plays that were never written for people that identify that way. And so like we're trying to shoehorn, and I just don't, I'm like, why are we not doing, and I understand that like we've also tried to shorten development, but doing new plays that are actually written for folks, by folks of diverse identities, talking about what is going on with them and their life stories, instead of trying to do this like mashup that we're doing, is something that I'm really thinking a lot about, and how I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by trying to bring up all of these older plays that you can look at now and be like, are problematic across the board. Like, I don't think they necessarily hold up for myself. And I think for a lot of other people. I think also a lot of, you brought it up, a lot of lack of institutional support. I feel like I watched a lot of people, predominantly a lot of Black women, be put into positions of power and then have no support behind them. There was no money, like the money was attached to the person, not the institution. So once a person leaves, that money has left with them, and they're not doing the work to support and make sure that money is still coming in when a new artistic director or a new executive director comes in. It feels like they're just like, well, we did the thing, so peace out, bye. And then the money people all tend to go with them. That feels extremely problematic as well.
Well, it's also because you're trying to, you're trying to do magic. Like, it's really important to understand that we still exist in a capitalistic society, right? And it's really post-capitalism right now, but that's another session. And so, like the whole point is that it's hard because it's a non-for-profit model in most regional theaters, and which means you have a dream about your budget, and you put forth this dream, and you just hope that you break even at the end of the year. So some of it is a part of like how can you dream, not shut the theater down? All the things have to happen at the same time. Like, there is that, but there also is this idea. Like, I love this idea of institutional curiosity. That is something to consider too. Thank you so much, Jarrell.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So first, I just wanted to say thank you. Is it Tamara or Tamara?
Tamara.
Tamara. See, that's why I wanted to make sure. Thank you so much for leading this conversation. I was really excited to get the chance to see you and hear you and see you do your thing. So just thank you for that. I just wanted to say, and of course, Harley and Bree, and for all that you shared. So for the question that you posed, I think DG and those who love and support DG, I think it is whatever the solution or answer is, it begins with what this community is already trying to do, which
Mm-hmm.
is basically like the way that we make theater in terms of American regional theater moving on to Broadway is still a lot like the way they made theater 100 years ago.
It's,
We're
it's
a
act
hundred
not
years from
like
the
it's
we're
the
100 years
same way.
out
Yeah.
from the Greek theater.
Yeah.
We're 100, or not, judges, they're 30, so we're a little bit before. But we're really close to like that era of like when Stanislavski came over and had a conversation. Except that happened in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so the whole idea of what became American realism, and then the regional theater movement of the 1960s, and the British wave of the 80s. It's like all of this history has in some ways kept our system stuck
Mm-hmm.
in what has worked in the past, because what has worked in the past has essentially worked, and it has made some people rich, not most of us, but it has made some people rich. And the stories that come out of the egos of the 20th century, a lot of that, folks who are running theaters are still very much aware of and in line with that way of creating art, even as the younger generation, and I don't even mean my generation anymore, but the younger generation is constantly like, but what if we did it this other way?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, like, I don't know what the answer to the question is, but I think that it's what happens when we decide collectively to connect what we say on paper and what we say in public about how we are and how we actually
Mm-hmm.
do the thing. And part of that is American capitalism, because theater is a business like every other American business.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So you're always going to have that business element, but like sorry, and I'm wrapping up.
No, no, you found.
Anna Devere Smith like wrote in one of her books, like theater is the only business where you walk into a space and people start hugging. Like if I walked in and Carly saw me, we were, oh my God, I'm so good to see you. I love you. I love this girl. You have no idea how dope they are. You know what I mean? And
Right.
then we go into a boardroom and Carly like, yo, I'm going to need 40% off the top. And I'm like, yo, Carly, I'm not giving you 40, but I could give you 35 or something. You know what I mean? Then we talk turkey. So like, how can we? I don't know.
Well,
This
that's
is what
it,
keeps
right?
us stuck, but there's something in it that also has the potential to move us forward. But some
Yes.
part of it has to be being willing to let go of the past that has anchored us for so long. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
No, no. I think I thank you for all these conversations because so I'm not countering. I'm saying that there are examples in the past though where these things have happened. Like they have been these beautiful, like if we even look at like those beautiful books of the Negro Theater Ensemble, and we look at like spaces that were like, we're going to tell these stories in these spaces and invite people from the community and have these things in. We have done that. I think the thing is though, we have very selective memory when it comes to historical practices. And and then when people get to a certain space and power, so this is my knowledge, my metaphor. I imagine that theater, like any other business, is like this huge banquet table. It's a banquet table and has all this food piled up, and it has a certain amount of chairs around it. But there's also a long line of people trying to get to the two empty chairs. And as people come through the line to get to the two empty chairs, they make promises. They're like, hey, if I get up there, I'm gonna do such and such, and I'm gonna make sure that we have more chairs at the table. I'll make sure we have an extra table. Da, da, da. But then you get to the table and you forget all those promises that you made to get to the table because somehow it doesn't serve you. you know, one thing, there's a book called Up South, which details the historical participation of Philadelphia in the civil rights movement. And Matthew Countryman wrote the book. He's a native of Philadelphia. His mom's a native Philadelphia Girls High alum. And one thing he said, a book talk that I'll never forget, it's not in the book, but he said this in a book talk, is he said, laws will never change the hearts of man. And that stuck with me because I was like, it doesn't matter how many diversity statements we make. Doesn't matter how many Broadway theaters we change the names of. It doesn't matter how many more people we increase in union membership. It doesn't change the fact that to make some of these changes that some of you are asking about requires a moral standpoint. It requires like a moral integrity to do the right thing. And for some of us, that means that's why I have color conscious casting and colorblind casting. So the Oklahoma job, I don't want to take away from it. It employed a lot of people of color. It employed people who were doing American Sign Language, all the stuff. Yes, we checked all the boxes. But did it tell, by seeing their faces on stage, does that change the story of the territory itself and the natives who were on that original territory? Does it retell that story differently? When we're talking about, when you think about shows like Purpose, which talk a lot about these were the people we looked up to and this is who we are now versus, right? And mental health and all these different things that are in there. Is that story enough to check off the box and say, oh, we did such and such, right? And for example, like there are more Black directors working in certain regions, but I'm sure all of us have noticed it's the same Black directors working in these regions. Like once you collect them, it becomes the same people. And so I think it's yes and, right? I think it's like, how can you be, and I think we also have to look outside of theater. Artists, oh God, I don't want to say this. Okay. So creatives, who I love, clearly as I rub my temples, have a tendency, just like anybody else, have a tendency to be insular. We look within our community. We don't look at the similarities between this community and incarceral community, this community and education community, this community and the issues happening in hospitals. They are based in the same thing. They are based in the same issues. They are based in the same issues of race, sexism, toxicity. It's the same rules. Who has the money? Okay, if I have enough money, I can go to the best hospital. Right? Our country still applies to class. Even our regional theaters are classed off. If you had an A+ theater versus a D theater, it's a different experience. If you have a guest artist contract versus not a contract, it's a different experience. If you're in a theater that's doing theater for the community, and it's like, look, we open these great doors for people. We don't have rehearsals for 7 hours, but maybe somebody know their lines, maybe not. Maybe the lighting will be great, maybe it won't. We have a tendency to give certain communities access to better things. That is nothing more than, that's what that is, right? That's what that looks like. And so I would like to put inside, I'm going to actually add it, if you could actually take, so one is to take 2 minutes, I'm going to put inside the chat. Sorry, we have 10 minutes left, but I also want to share with you some ideas that come from some ways that you can have these conversations. So one is you have to have development. I say professional development, but theater groups, DG, all of our organizations, which we're doing now in this convening, we have to have conversations centered on education, race, and equity, but also history. We love to talk about DEI till the cows come home. But if I ask anyone, when did racial constructs even start historically? And why do we still have this issue today? What is post-capitalism? How does that affect theater? Why do we have commercial off-Broadway and non-for-profit off-Broadway? What does that mean? What's the difference? It's a huge difference. Broadway, no matter how many people are like, oh, I'm so happy about Broadway. Broadway is a commercial entity. It collects all of its needed money up front. So the only thing that a Broadway show can do is either not break even, or make people extra money. That's a win-win-win. When you come to regional theaters and say, for instance, equity is like, we want to negotiate that you have more actors on your stage. Great. But you can't make us have more actors on our stage. So this whole season is going to be a series of 3-people shows. And we're going to bring in people from outside of our region to work in this region. Okay. What about directors? Well, Broadway Advocacy used to have a program that anybody could sign up. Just recently, it has been like New York-based artists can sign up. Now, some of this has to do that DEI on a very high level is being attacked. Money is being attacked on a governmental level. And so we also have to be aware of who we vote for. No matter what our allegiance may lie to, whoever you vote for absolutely affects everything we have talked about in this conversation. It affects how money flows. But at the same token, if you're doing a show in Alabama and you're like, Alabama Shakes is there. Well, how many people in Alabama, Dr. King's Day is also Robert F. Lee Day? So it's like, where is that conversation? We can talk about having land acknowledgement statements. Okay, wonderful. But how many of us truly understand about the erasure of Native history? Not just history itself in books, but also in art and theater. There's a beautiful Native show that was supposed to open at Taper Theater in LA before the Panorama. It got shuttered, never happened, and never to be seen again. And that's only one example. But the point is, we're not trying to usher in just all the stories. We're trying to make room for American stories, because that is where we also get into an issue too. We're like, well, we're going to tell all these stories during Black History Month or Asian History Month or Pickup Month. I don't know. The whole point is, these stories make up the tapestry of America. So we have to also start having trainings for our boards about what does it mean to be American. We have to also have selections of new plays that are more courageous culturally and ethnically and age-wise. We definitely have to practice color conscious casting over colorblind casting. And we have to always, all of our decisions have to not just consider one thing, but have to consider bias, prejudice, whiteness, systemic racism, and colorism. Because Hamilton, you know, all of those shows get progressively darker as they go to tour. When they initially open up Broadway, they're not so much. So we have to talk about what does that mean? So yes. And where does money go and where does money lie? We have 5. I think we have 5. Yes, we have 5 minutes. Carly, yes.
I just wanted to bring in, like, what you're saying is bringing so much to my brain, and I'm thinking about how, like, individualism has, like, really made on, I keep saying unresonant art, because I don't want to, like, it's not resonating with people or audiences, and I think that's also why people are not coming back. But I think individualism has done that to us as well, where all these companies are so siloed, and now they're finally starting to be like, oh, what if we work together and we're a community? But, like, who's being open, who's getting those seats at the community tables as well? But I'm curious also about these, like, Lord theaters and these bigger theaters. They have rehearsal spaces, they have other spaces. What if they are connecting with other artists and other groups and, like, trying to make, like, spaces? But I think that's also working with the people at the top who don't necessarily, whatever reasons, my own personal belief is probably a lot of ego, but that's me, is, like, people who do not want to, like, open up their spaces to other artists, or are very, like, hierarchical about it, or very much like, that's good art, that's bad art, which all art is subjective. So, like, is it resonating with people or is it not?
Within the lines, right? Because there's also loopholes. Because I'm Lord Theaters are saying, well, equity says we cannot. And as somebody who is deep in equity's boots, I'm like, no, we actually are saying you can. If you choose to do a community experience, and like so many people have 2 spaces, right? If you want to do a community event in a space, you absolutely can. You know, if this community event is going to bring other artists in, you absolutely can do that. There's all these things that you really can do. But it's like you said, I think it's like, are you courageous enough to ask those questions? Or is it cheaper, easier for you just to be like, well, we're going to let the space be dark?
We won't turn on the lights instead of giving our rehearsal space to a group of artists to make a space. You could have a community where then, like, you're also sharing audiences, building your audiences, building more diverse audiences, because you're able to have more things in the space, and you're not putting the money out. Put it as an in-kind donation on your taxes, y'all. Like, there is a way to make this work.
And there's also, like, other ways to think about how people get theater. I think people are, I love live theater and I love being there. But let's face it, I also like being at home. So the whole thing is, if there's ways to film shows and stream shows for those people that have small children, because many of us are in the generation, we are caring for now our adult parents. And I know the last time I took my mom to show, she loves shows, but she also has a bad knee. So now I can't take her to certain theaters because the seats are horrible. So that limits us, right? Because we don't talk about that either. We also do not talk enough. So I remember it was years ago, there was an Annenberg grant between Goodman Theater, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and the Art Institute in Chicago. And what they did is in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's a beautiful idea. So I think that year they were doing Jitney. In fact, it was when Jitney first was, like, being a thing, August Wilson playing and the Goodman. And so what they did is they did a reading of Jitney with the actual cast members at a new community center on the west side of Chicago. So that meant that people in the community could come and see Harry Lennox and all these people being in Jitney in there, right around the corner from their house, right? Because a lot of times we think a community experience, a community engagement plan is you bringing people in. It's also you bringing people to them, right? And why not have, I remember I was away doing a show. I saw Bones at People's Lab. That was brilliant. I thought it was really brilliant. They had 3 days that you could stream it for X amount of dollars. I was sharing those tickets far and wide. I was like, oh my goodness, the show is so brilliant. So all of my mother's retired friends, because they be living their best lives, spending their money. I said they sat around my mother's house and watched the stream production of Bones and donated money to the theater. So there's all these different things too that come into these conversations. But I want to thank you, because it's the end. Da, 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 da. Your Padlet is there for you forever. For those who do not get the link to the Padlet, I can put it back in there, but it has all things. Thank you for those who were able to complete the survey. This helps me to know like what to add, what not to add for future things. And I really hope this conversation was as engaging for you all as it was for me. I really had a good time with you today.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Thank you for everybody for being here. We are at the end of our sessions for weekend 1 of the convening. If you would like to come back this evening, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, start time, to just reflect, to just chat. It's a space to use as you wish. I'll be there, whether or not you're there, but I hope you come and chat with the folks. And we will see you again next Saturday. Take care, everybody.
In person next Saturday.
Hybrid.
Oh,
You
hybrid.
could, yeah, in person or
We
you
want
could,
them in person.
yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.